When I bought the house on Sycamore Lane, all I wanted was a quiet place to work on my art, tend to my garden, and enjoy a slower pace of life. The community was picture perfect. Tree-lined sidewalks, neatly trimmed hedges, and homes in every shade of beige imaginable. It looked peaceful from the outside, but it didn't take long to realize that beneath the manicured lawns and forced smiles was something uglier. My name's Ethan Cole, mid-30s, former industrial designer turned independent sculptor. I don't wear polos, I don't golf, and I certainly don't care about the preferred paint palette. The Homeowners Association keeps pushing like gospel. I bought my house because I liked the bones of it, and because it came with a bit of land. The first thing I did after moving in was handcraft a mailbox. Cedar wood, solid post, black iron box with brass numbering. It was unique, tasteful, and personal. 3 days later, it was smashed to pieces. At first, I assumed it was a freak accident, a careless driver backing out too fast, or maybe some teens with a baseball bat and too much time on their hands. I filed a report with the HOA, submitted photos, and rebuilt the mailbox, this time reinforcing it with steel brackets inside the post. Exactly 1 week later, it was destroyed again, not cracked, annihilated. The post was shattered midway down, the box twisted like a pretzel, and fresh tire marks scarred the grass nearby. Someone had driven onto my property to do it, deliberately. That's when I met her, Clarissa Templeton, though everyone just called her Karen, and it fit. She had the haircut, the permanent scowl, the towering aura of superiority that made even the bravest neighbors cross the street when she approached. She was president of the Willow Creek HOA and carried herself like the neighborhood was her personal kingdom. She didn't bother knocking. She just appeared as I was hauling the splintered mailbox remains out to the trash. Shame, she said, arms crossed over her clipboard. Not every design works here, you know. This community thrives on unity. I turned, not entirely sure what I was hearing. Someone rammed it. Unity had nothing to do with it, she shrugged. Well, sometimes the neighborhood rejects things that don't belong. Might be the style, or the materials, or the attitude. There, it was. Not subtle, not even veiled. A warning, served with a fake smile and a dash of menace. Still, I tried to play it cool. I didn't realize handmade craftsmanship was such a threat. It's not about threats, Mr. Cole. It's about standards. I watched her stroll back toward her spotless white SUV, clipboard swinging like a baton of judgment. And that's when I knew it wasn't random. She'd done it, or had someone do it for her. Either way, my mailbox was the first battle in, a war I hadn't asked for. I sent a second complaint to the HOA, attached photos, explained that this was deliberate property damage. Their reply came 3 days later. Dear Mr. Cole, your mailbox is in violation of Section 4B of the Community Uniformity Guidelines. Please replace it with an approved model. Continued non-compliance may result in fines. No mention of the destruction, no investigation, just a bureaucratic slap on the wrist for me. I replaced the mailbox again, this time a boring regulation black aluminum box. HOA approved. Bland and uninspired, just how they liked it. Karen passed by the next day, gave me a tight nod. Much better, she said. I clenched my jaw, said nothing. But inside, something shifted. I'd grown up in a tough part of Philly. I knew a bully when I saw one. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was enforcing control. And she had the neighborhood wrapped around her perfectly manicured finger. This wasn't over, because no matter how many mailboxes she destroyed, I was just getting started. For a short while, I played along. The plain black aluminum mailbox stood like a surrender flag at the edge of my lawn, lifeless, forgettable, and exactly what the HOA demanded. I hated it. Every time I walked past, it felt like a little piece of me had been paved over by conformity. But at least it was safe, until it wasn't. 10 days later, I woke to the hollow clang of metal on pavement. I rushed outside barefoot, heart pounding. The mailbox was gone, ripped out at the base, post, and all. Not a splinter or shard in sight, just deep tire grooves in the dew-soaked grass. Like someone had backed in, yanked the whole thing out with a chain, and driven off. I checked the footage from my security cameras, but Karen was no amateur. The cameras only faced my porch and front steps. Blind to the mailbox by a few frustrating feet, the HOA's response: "Dear Mr. Cole, it has come to our attention that your mailbox has been removed. As per HOA guidelines, all residents must maintain a visible, compliant mailbox. Please reinstall yours within 72 hours to avoid daily fines. No sympathy, no mention of vandalism, no investigation. Just another warning, this time paired with a daily $50 penalty." I knew who was behind it. Karen never needed fingerprints. Her fingerprints were policies. Her weapons were forms and fees. What bothered her wasn't the mailbox itself. It was me. I didn't grovel. I didn't blend in. I didn't attend her HOA meetings, clapping politely while she read from the same rule book she used to punish creativity and independence. In her world, different was dangerous. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was done playing defense, so I stopped by the hardware store. Not to buy a new mailbox, but to gather materials. I spent the weekend sketching, welding, pouring, grinding. Neighbors slowed their walks to gawk as the form took shape. Some waved, others whispered. I ignored them all. The base went 3 feet deep. Solid concrete with rebar mesh. Centered in the foundation was a 6-inch wide steel I-beam, rising like a monument of defiance. Atop that, I installed a welded, stainless steel box with a locking front panel. I sanded the welds, polished the surface, and etched my house number in bold modern script. Subtle LED strips lined the box's underside, casting a cool white glow at night. It was beautiful, industrial, unapologetic, the perfect fusion of art and vengeance. And it was 100% compliant. Dimensions, within regulation. Color, neutral. Visibility, perfect. Obstruction, none. I'd printed the entire HOA mailbox specification packet and checked every box, twice. Karen came by on the second evening, lips pursed so tight they practically disappeared. Her heels clicked across the sidewalk like gunfire. "What is that?" she asked, pointing as if it were radioactive. "That," I said calmly, "is my new mailbox. It's a monstrosity. It's compliant," she sputtered. "The spirit of the community isn't outlined in the mailbox policy." I cut in, holding up a printed copy of the regulations, highlighted and tabbed. Page 4. No restriction on materials, so long as measurements are respected. She stepped closer, inspecting the steel. "This looks dangerous." Only to people who ram into it with their cars. That made her flinch. She left without another word. Her expression twisted with a cocktail of fury and frustration. For the first time since I moved in, she had nothing to fine, no rule to twist, no ordinance to manipulate. I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong. At 2:14 a.m. the following Tuesday, a sickening screech jolted me awake. Then came the unmistakable crunch of metal meeting metal. A car alarm wailed through the silence, like a banshee. I threw on a hoodie and ran outside, phone in hand. There, wrapped around the base of my mailbox like an expensive bow on a revenge gift was a crumpled white Lexus. Karen stood beside it, stunned, mascara streaked, both hands clamped over her mouth. Her bumper was sheared, the axle bent, fluids pooled beneath the chassis. And the mailbox, not a scratch. She looked at me like I'd set a trap, like I had committed the crime. You did this on purpose, she hissed. Did you just confess to hitting my property? I asked, raising my phone and hitting record. She turned pale. Her hands dropped. Her eyes darted to the mailbox, then back to me. The sirens arrived 5 minutes later. Karen's Lexus was totaled. The impact with the reinforced mailbox had bent her front end like origami. Her bumper lay several feet away, tangled in pieces of her shattered grille. Steam hissed from under the hood, like an embarrassed sigh from the vehicle itself. She stood there in her silk robe and designer slippers, dazed, arms limp at her sides. When the officers arrived, she snapped to life. "He set a trap," she barked, pointing at me like I was holding a detonator. "This mailbox is dangerous. It's a weapon." The officer squinted at the scene, then at me. "Sir, is this your property?" "Yes, officer," I said calmly, handing over my HOA compliance paperwork. Mailbox installed to regulation specs, 3 feet from the curb, under 48 inches tall, constructed with approved materials. I even called for a utility check before digging. I did everything by the book. Karen stormed forward, her voice rising. "This isn't a normal mailbox. It's designed to injure. Look at my car." The second officer, older, sharper, ran his flashlight over the post, then back to Karen's car. "Ma'am, it looks like you drove off the road, over the curb, and struck his mailbox. Not the other way around. I was trying to adjust my tires," she stammered. "They pulled at 2 a.m, the officer asked dryly. Karen clammed up. They filed the report. I didn't press charges. There was no need. Her own recklessness had already cost her far more than I ever could. The next morning, whispers rippled through the neighborhood. Pictures spread faster than fire. Someone posted a photo of her wreck online, captioned, "Karen versus the mailbox." Final score, 0-1. By noon, the meme started. Her face, frozen mid-scream, photoshopped over a demolition derby poster. The mailbox was the new local legend. Kids posed with it after school. One neighbor, a retired machinist, offered to buff the steel weekly just to keep it shiny. Karen? She vanished for 3 days. When she finally emerged, hair slicked into a bun, sunglasses too large for her face. She made a show of inspecting properties with her clipboard. But something had changed. Her presence no longer radiated authority. It buzzed with desperation. At the next HOA meeting, the community room was packed. Normally, 5 or 6 residents showed up. That night, it was standing room only. Karen took her usual seat at the head of the table, gavel in hand, mouth tight. "I'd like to begin with item 1, she said. "New restrictions on mailbox." Actually, someone interrupted from the back. "I'd like to propose a motion." Karen blinked. "To remove Ms. Templeton from her position as HOA president." A silence heavier than concrete settled over the room. Then, slowly, hands started going up, one by one. People I'd never even met. Families with kids, retired couples, even the quiet couple next door. When the final count was in, it was 34-1. Only Karen voted to keep Karen. She tried to argue, claimed bias, harassment, even suggested I'd manipulated the vote. But the people were done. Years of fines, nitpicks, and weaponized rules had worn them down. The mailbox incident had simply peeled back the curtain. She stormed out mid-meeting, her gavel clattering to the floor behind her. The board selected a new interim president, Mrs. Vega, a kind woman with a garden full of sunflowers and zero tolerance for power trips. Her first act? Voiding Karen's fines on my account and implementing a policy that all future HOA violations required photographic evidence and a board vote. Fairness at last. As for me, I finally got to live the peaceful life I'd moved here for. My mailbox remained untouched, unbent, untouchable. People often asked if I'd build them one just like it. I always smiled and said no, because it wasn't just a mailbox. It was a line in the sand, a monument to standing your ground when rules become weapons and civility turns to control. Karen didn't last long after that. Within a month, her house went on the market. Moving to be closer to family, the listing said, funny, she never mentioned having family. The morning the moving truck pulled away, I stood on my porch sipping coffee. She didn't look at me, just climbed into the passenger seat, shoulders tight, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. But I saw it, the smallest twitch in her jaw, a crack in the armor, and I knew she'd never forget that mailbox. The day Karen left Sycamore Lane, the neighborhood exhaled. For the first time in years, people lingered on their lawns without fear of a surprise citation. Kids rode bikes without being scolded for chalk drawings. Porch swings creaked again. The air felt freer. As for me, I resumed my work. My garage, once a quiet workspace for my art, became a local curiosity. Neighbors stopped by more often, not to complain, but to chat, to ask questions, to tell me they never liked her either. One afternoon, Mrs. Vega brought lemonade and a folder of suggestions. Maybe you could help us design a new welcome sign for the neighborhood, she said with a hopeful smile. I agreed, on one condition. I want to hold a community workshop, I said. Let everyone help create it. No more top-down control. Let's make something together. That weekend, I hosted a design session in the community center. Old folks with sketch pads, kids with crayons, parents sharing stories of HOA absurdities. One woman still had a warning letter for planting unauthorized tulips. We laughed, we connected, and for the first time, the people of Willow Creek actually felt like neighbors. The new sign, unveiled 2 weeks later, was a collaborative sculpture, brushed steel intertwined with stained wood. Clean, elegant, but undeniably unique. At its base, we engraved the words, "Built by us, for us." People took selfies with it. One guy even suggested putting it on the neighborhood website. That same day, someone updated the community rules to include a clause. Creativity and individuality shall not be penalized, so long as it respects the safety and harmony of all residents. A small line, but it meant everything. My mailbox, meanwhile, stood like a sentinel. I polished it once a month, mostly out of pride. It had become a symbol, not just of defiance, but of reclaiming identity in a place where one woman had tried to crush it. Under the weight of regulations, then, one evening, as the sky turned to amber and the cicadas hummed low, I noticed a car, slow in front of my house. Not a flashy Lexus this time, just a plain sedan. The driver window rolled down. It was her, Karen. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her hair loose, no clipboard in sight. She didn't step out, just stared at the mailbox for a moment, then at me. "You won," she said flatly. I didn't reply. She hesitated, then added, "I thought I was protecting something, order, standards, but I became something else. Still, I said nothing. Some things didn't need forgiving. They just needed ending. She drove off. That was the last time I saw her. The following spring, I entered a piece in the State Artisan Showcase, a sculpture titled Unmovable, inspired by the Mailbox, built with similar materials. It took second place, but to me, it might as well have been gold. Months passed, and peace became normal. The HOA, under Mrs. Vega's leadership, became something functional, not a weapon, but a tool. Meetings were transparent. Votes were democratic. Rules were discussed, not dictated. And me, I finally understood what it meant to belong somewhere. Not because I followed every rule, but because I helped shape the place I lived in. Honestly, openly, without fear. One afternoon, as I walked home from the market, a father and his young son stopped in front of my house. The boy pointed up at the mailbox and asked, "Is that the one?" His dad chuckled. "That's the one, the strongest mailbox in the state." I smiled, gave the kid a little salute. They walked on. That night, I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the stars prick through the navy sky. The mailbox gleamed in the moonlight, silent and steady. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about standing your ground, not with fists or fury, but with integrity, with something so solid, so undeniable, that those who tried to break it only broke themselves against it. Karen may have driven away, but the message stayed behind. Don't mess with someone who builds for a living, especially not their mailbox.